Bam.
Hello.
Say, this is Pierre Rahov, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
I'm very happy to be with you today, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, I parle a little Francais myself, by the way, but let's stick in English because my French is pretty terrible, man. So Will Riley hooked us up to talk about your work. You and I have both done work on the ground in hard places: Iraq, Afghanistan, Israel, like where during conflict, these kind of things. What put you on this path to go do these hard things in these hard places?
Well, I'm not going to tell you about my life because I'm becoming old. It would be a long story.
Yeah.
But, in the past, I studied law. I went to law school. Had nothing to do with whatever I did later on. From law school, I became a journalist specialized in cinema, movie industry, for many years. And from that, later on, I became more involved in film distribution in France. So I had a kind of a filmmaking background.
Okay.
So later on, I moved from these kind of things to becoming the head of a small group of magazines. I became a magazine publisher, and now we are in the year 2000. I was on vacation in Morocco. I came back from my vacation, and usually I don't watch French television. I don't watch at least the French news because it's a bunch of crap. Okay, you don't want to put BBC and CNN together. It's being dwarfed by the French television. Okay, it's really terrible.
That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
And but this day, for some reason, I put the bag in my living room, and oh, there's somebody else with us.
We got Will.
Gents, how are you?
Hello, Wilfred.
Pierre, good to meet you. Pete, good to see you.
Yeah. Continue. Sorry. Yeah.
I just reached the year 2000 out of my long story, and I sat in my living room, and for once, like I never did before, I just turned on television, and I was right there in the news with the death of Mohammed al-Dura, supposedly having been killed by the Israeli army. And because of my personal background in journalism and filmmaking and law, because I went to law school, the three things together led me to say, this is fake news. The next day in the streets of Paris, they were shouting death to the Jews. A few days later in Ramallah, they tortured and killed two innocent guys who were lost in Ramallah. There was real horrible things happening there. And the entire world started talking about the death of Mohammed al-Dura. Actually, even when Pearl was beheaded in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, he was beheaded with images of the death of Mohammed al-Dura in the background. So I thought this is a moment for me to get involved. I don't know why, like a mission coming from I don't know where. I said, I'm going to get involved. I'm going to sue the French television. So I went after some Jewish organizations because I couldn't do that on myself because of the specificity of some French laws, but I knew. So I found a Jewish group, humanitarian group, that accepted to represent me to sue the French television and the French government. And we did. But before that, they said, okay, but you need to conduct an investigation because we have nothing except for your goodwill. I said, okay. And I jumped in the plane, I went to Israel, and this is when I started my job as a filmmaker, reporter, whatever you want to name it, with a mission to really debunk fake news coming from the Palestinian and from the Muslims in general. That's it. That's my story. That's how I got it.
I love that it starts with getting.
I'm still there. 25 years later, I'm still in it.
I love that it starts with recognizing fake news and everything else. I mean, I quit watching the news a long time ago because I just got tired of getting lied to and getting mad about what they were saying as I was getting lied to. And I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I'm a big believer in going to the source, and that goes back to my time on the ground. If you want to find out what the sheikhs think, go talk to the sheikhs. It doesn't matter if they lie to me. I'd have to start there, right, and build trust with those guys so that they do this. All right, listen. And if they do that, I'm hearing things that nobody else gets to hear, right? And I am making the news. And
Yeah.
we have this silly thing here in Las Vegas where one of our baseball teams is going to build a stadium. There's a whole enclave of people that don't believe it's going to happen, and they invent these wild fantasies. And I just go out and I just like go talk to the dude who runs the union hall. Hey, are you guys getting paid to go out there and work? Yes, of course. You go talk to the guy that rents heavy equipment. Are you guys getting orders for heavy equipment? Yes. Okay. Well, then if these things are happening, how can anybody else say the thing's not getting made, right? Like it's just you talk to regular people who have no reason to lie. Matter of fact, they're incentivized to be honest because they're like, yeah, I'm doing good here. This project's going to be great for us. We tend to lose sight of the fact that anybody can go out and be this kind of a journalist, right? Whatever that means, and talk about what they know and get to know people. I don't know why that's so hard. I don't know why you have to have a suit and tie on TV and sell Cadillacs while you're doing this stuff, but people tend to like the news for some reason, even though it's just god awful sometimes.
I know. Today, if you're on a cell phone, you're a journalist. You just go in the street, film whatever you want with your cell phone, and if you're lucky to find some good event, you're going to become a journalist. That's it.
Yeah.
No need to go to school. No need to know how to talk. You just need a cell phone and be the right place, the right moment. So,
right.
Talking about that, one of my crazy experiences was a few years later, 2003, after the Battle of Jenin. And this is a thing that I very often talk about, because it's very specific. When people ask me, you're always telling us that you're after the truth, but there are always many sides to the truth. I said, yeah, but there are numbers and facts, and those cannot lie. And I'm giving you an example. After the Battle of Jenin, some doctor in Jenin said that Israeli soldiers committed a massacre and they had killed 700 innocent Palestinians. So I went to Jenin and I went to meet with doctor. I met with his doctor, who actually spoke fluent French because he studied medicine in France, okay? So I was there in his office and he was telling me all this bullshit. And I knew one thing for sure, which was admitted and accepted, including by the Palestinian Authority and including by the United Nations. There was no 700 people killed in Jenin, but 53. The real number was 53. And since you had also 34 Israeli soldiers who died during the battle, it was anything but a massacre. It was just a battle. So I didn't want to argue with him about the numbers, but at a certain point he told me the Israeli tanks arrived, and the first thing they did was to fire tanks, 11 tank shells at one of the aisles of the hospital. I said, wow, that's a war crime. And I have to tell you something. What allows me to do my job, and I've been doing it for 25 years, is because I'm French. And not only am I French, but I was born in an Arab country. So when I go to see those guys, they see a French guy who was born in an Arab country. Automatically, they open themselves to me. They think I'm on the side. And I play the game. Yeah, of course. Israeli war crimes, genocide, whatever you want to name it. I'm with you guys. Tell me more. Just tell me more. I want to know. So this doctor told me 11 tank shells were fired at the hospital. I said, okay, can you show me? He said, sure. He took me out of the hospital. It's in my film, The Road to Jenin. I will send you a link if you want to watch it. It's right there. You can see exactly what I'm telling you. It's right there. He took me out of the hospital and showed me a wall. And I swear to God, on this wall, there was a little hole like this. One bullet, maybe not even a bullet. He said, this is a result of 11 tank shells. He said, yes, but they were anti-personnel tank shells, which is complete bullshit, doesn't exist, anti-personnel tank shells. And I was on the way back to Israel after spending a little bit of time there, putting myself in danger, kind of meeting terrorists and all that. I was thinking, how come on earth that this doctor in a Palestinian hospital in Jenin tells me that the Israelis have been fired tank shells at the hospital, and he shows me the wall, and it's obvious nothing happened. Why is he doing that? Because the guy knows I'm French, and he knows that when I come back to Paris with my material, my chief editor or whoever is involved in the channel at the level of responsibility is going to take his word, but not my images. He says the sky is pink. They don't film the sky. They film him saying it's pink. This is how it works in most media. You name it. Yeah. CNN, BBC, MSNBC, and French television. So this is when I really understood there was a lot of work to do. And here I am, still 25 years later.
Hey, Will, thanks for coming on the show and thanks for bringing Pierre to us. This is a wonderful chat we already got going on. Thanks for being here, man.
Of course, yeah, I jumped in a couple minutes late. Sorry about that, gentlemen. But yeah, I think listening to Pierre open up here, I mean, the obvious cross theme is that a lot of what we hear, and by the way, Pete, I don't just think this is an international news in general. I mean, we all watch American television, French television. Sure, it's bullshit, but this is a different level. And I mean, I've looked through Pierre's list of movies here, and this is just Wikipedia and Britannica I have pulled up. But I mean, Pierre, you've done a response to Janine, which I think is just what you discussed, yes, where you pointed out that this well-known battle in my field of political science was not a one-sided massacre of 740 people where they were firing, I mean, as you mentioned, tank shells into the hospital. And I mean, there's quite a bunch of this. The beyond deception strategy, which I've actually seen before, in part, you know, terror, racket, and corruption, lies and tears. I guess the first question that comes to my mind, when you observe the news that comes out of what's sometimes jokingly called Pallywood, a lot of it seems obviously untrue. And I have one specific question here. I saw this today. This is in a group for executives in my city, and this just seemed obviously, well, I'm not going to read this whole thing. Basically, there's a claim that the USA and Israel are working together to create kind of death pits, like in front of areas where aid is distributed. They're digging the sort of trap you would use if you were hunting a tiger. And people are rushing to get sugar and flour, and they're falling into these pits, and they're being buried by bulldozers or killed by punji stakes. This is a real claim, by the way. You can see this online. I guess there's a two-part question. How much of the news that you hear from the Palestinian side in this conflict is correct? Another claim, for example, was that OxyContin is being used to poison flour in Gaza. How much of this is correct, and why is so much of it obvious nonsense? Is it just what you said, the assumption that Western journalists lean left and they're going to run with it? Because this seems very unusual. I mean, Pete and I have both lived in the developing world, and even by those standards, a lot of this is not normal. Well, what's your thought?
Well, if you're asking me for numbers, I would say that maybe 15% of what the Palestinians say is true. Maybe 15%. I'm not even sure of those 15%. You're talking about Pallywood and Gaza wood. I mean, they are using plastic dolls. They are inflated. When you hear the numbers, 47,000 people died. Okay, first of all, nobody's really putting the details of the 47,000 Gazans who died. First of all, 18,000 of them were terrorists, for sure. The numbers, according to some reports that I've been reading lately, the numbers increase like on a regular basis, like almost every day there are 200 dead. Okay, it's not like, oh, one day 1,000 and the next day 50. No, it's like regular. It's like a machine. Oh, today we had a normal account of 200 people dying. Complete BS. Okay. On the top of that, they put in this number of 47,000 dead, all the dead, including those who died of a heart attack, car accident, lung disease, cancer, you name it. Everything is in it. Now, there's another thing. All the rockets that the Hamas and other terror organizations have been firing onto Israeli cities to target actually innocent Israeli citizens. 10% of them are defectors, and they fall inside Gaza. And it's not like the Israeli army sending flyers and giving phone calls, we're going to bomb this area, please go away. No, those rockets are fired by Hamas and they fall into Gaza and they kill people. Simple. How many? I don't know. But if you consider that 10% out of something like 20,000 rockets fired fell into Gaza, you're right there, 2,000 rockets making damages into Gaza. Now, another thing that people tell me, well, but Israel, blah, blah, blah. Say no. From a very cynical point of view, very cynical, forget about the human nature of Israeli soldiers. Forget about the Jewish philosophy about life and death. Forget about all that. Imagine that we are the worst monsters in the world, okay, as they describe us. What would be the interest of Israel army to do that? We know that we are scrutinized by the entire planet. We have no interest whatsoever in committing a massacre in Gaza. We are losing Israeli soldiers on a daily basis when it would be so easy to carpet bomb the shithole. Sorry, I know you're going to beep this, but okay.
I'm not. I'm going to leave that.
Okay, so I'm going to say it again. It would be so easy to carpet bomb the shithole, but instead we're sending soldiers to go house to house to house to house. Some of those houses are booby trapped, and we're losing young soldiers, 19 years old, 18 years old, 20 years old, just to protect Israeli Palestinian civilians. And on top of that, we're accused of committing a genocide when there's a genocide every single day in Sudan and in other countries where Christians are slaughtered on a daily basis and nobody cares about it. When 2 million Uyghurs in China are put in concentration camps, nobody cares about it. Only when Israel is we're not even sure of that, eventually killing one Palestinian, one collateral damage out of a mistake, or maybe just because Palestinian terrorists were hiding because they are using their population as human shields. So from a very cynical point of view, what would be the interest of Israel to commit a genocide? And it's not even a successful genocide because the population of Gaza increased by 2.1% since October 7, 2023. So it's a ridiculous. And Hollywood is a big part of it. They are using plastic dolls. They are using pictures of Syria and other places around the world where people were actually killed. They have all those staging where we put fake blood and all that. Okay, there were people who suffered and died in Gaza. Because, you know why? Because it's a war. And in a war, people die. Can you believe it? In all wars around the planet, people die, including in Gaza. So since we know it's a war and we know we cannot have the sympathy of the entire planet because we are just fighting a war, we had to invent all these stupid stories that BBC and The Guardian and MSNBC and the New York Times are more than happy to gather and grab because it makes money. It's simple as that.
That may be part of that may get into part of the explanation here in terms of this is financially profitable or there's an established.
This is 50% of the explanation. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I really apologize for interrupting, but this is this is 50% of the answer. The other 50% I'm going to give you right away. Okay. If you are working in the Palestinian territories, it's the same thing as working in North Korea or in Soviet Union before the end of the Soviet Empire. You are not free as a journalist to report the reality of the field. Let's say you're working for CNN and you're a good guy. If you're a good guy, you wouldn't be working for CNN. But let's say that in this case, you're a good guy working for CNN and you want to report honestly. And you report that the Palestinian Authority is spending 70% of its budget to give salaries to terrorists who are in jail in Israel. That's the last time you're going to work over there. Because if you come back, they're going to beat you up or they're going to kill you just because you've been spreading the truth. So if you want to keep your job, you have to do what the Palestinian Authority or what Hamas is authorizing you to say. If not, you cannot continue your job. And if this is how you make a living, well, you have to go back to the place. The other thing also is that a lot of journalists, because they are afraid, they stay in a very comfortable hotel in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem, and they send a Palestinian crew. Everything, cameraman, sound taker, journalists, they go there, they come back with the material. Good enough? Yeah, good enough. We're going to sell it. Here is $100 and we're going to make $2,000. Simple. The whole system is rigged and the result is Thousands of people are dying and the conflict doesn't stop, and all because of a system leading to the media having some interest in showing the Palestinian dead kids. That's simple as that. It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
That's actually an interesting point that was just made there, that most of what Western media does on the ground, this is true in Latin America as well, is obviously done by stringers from that area. So you're not necessarily, it's not Ted Koppel running around with the cartels seeing how cocaine is made in the Peruvian highlands. And if you're in an area where there's extreme political bias, there's a war between two sides. Yeah, if Israel has some respect for reporting the truth and Hamas has none, that's going to turn out to be an advantage for Hamas. That's something that perhaps naively I hadn't thought much about. One comment, I guess, on these numbers would be, I'm a political scientist and consultant in that field by background. And the interesting thing about this is that data from Gaza is treated as of course, Pierre, you probably know, like data from everywhere else.
Yes.
So when they report, well, we've lost 50,000 men in the war, and Israel says 2,000 or whatever, there are projections you can make from that, like what the total number of wounded is, what the number of disappeared is. And you're now starting to see this coming out of Gaza. So, I mean, there was a report the other day saying, well, if we assume the usual proportion of disappeared and we look at the dead and we don't think any of those people are refugees, this war could have killed 400,000 people. So the initial statistic of, well, we pulled this out of our ass, goes on to become this figure of 500,000 are dead. So when you talk to people about the genocide in Gaza, quote, quote, they don't say, well, the Israelis, they've killed 40,000 people during a 2-year war. They'll say, well, 500,000 people are dead. And this isn't really a follow-up question, but what you're saying is, well, all this is based on just a figure that Hamas made up. I mean, is that correct?
Absolutely. There is nothing else. Nothing else. Put it this way. Israel is a democracy where opinion is free and speech is free, freedom of speech, freedom of whatever. You can go in front of the prime minister office and say, kill the prime minister. Maybe not those days because we're in the middle of a war, but generally it's as much a democracy as any Western country used to be. I'm not saying as could be today because things have changed a little bit, especially in America with 8 years of Obama and 4 years of Joe Biden. I don't know if you're on the same side as I am, but I hate those two guys. End of the story. So when you're a journalist, when you're working in the media, you're supposed not to be biased at all. So you're going to do this. Hamas is saying this. Israel is saying that. Let's be in the middle. Let's give a little bit to everyone. The problem is this is a total lie, and this is the truth. So if you're in the middle, you're still publishing some lies, because the only truth is whatever is coming from the Israeli democracy. There's no other truth. Even, put it this way. If you remember a year ago, unfortunately, Russian hostages ran out of a place in the northern Gaza, and the Israeli, by mistakes, killed them. You remember that, right?
Yes, good.
The first thing the IDF said is, oh, we are sorry, we killed hostages. Nobody was there. There was no journalist. There were just the IDF. Nobody saw that happen. The IDF could simply have said they died because some Palestinian shot them. They could have lied. They didn't. They said, we apologize for what we did. So when you have a specific event, you know that the IDF never lies. Or sometimes they hide for security reasons. They don't want to give you all the tricks, obviously, and like any country would do during a war, in between wars. But when they do something bad, they just say it. And sometimes they say we did something bad, which actually didn't happen. I covered the war in Gaza in 2014. There was this story of 4 kids being killed on the beach, but the entire world got berserk about it, okay? I studied it very, very, I couldn't go to Gaza myself anymore because I'm Israeli. I used to go before 2006, but after that they were very strict, and even using my French passport, they would not let me go to Gaza anymore. So I had to work with locals, and there is a way to work with locals. They are there for the money. Most of the journalists, they want the images of dead kids because it sells. Me, I want the truth. So I give them a specific agenda. And as far as the 4 kids killed on the beach, I got every single reporter, journalist, Palestinians involved to give me all the material he had in his camera. Okay? And I can tell you as a fact, Hamas killed those kids. It was not Israel. Yet, it's complicated. I'm not going to go into that. You have to trust me on that. I could, after the show, send you some footage or whatever. But what I mean is that Israeli, until now, takes responsibility for the death of those kids on the beach. Okay? And there's another incident 2 years ago. Shirin Abu Akleh, the propagandist, so-called journalist working for Al Jazeera, killed by a sniper in Jenin. In Jenin, in a refugee camp of Jenin. And I smelled something fishy. So I went to conduct a whole investigation. And Jenin, I can go because the security is not the same as in Gaza. So you can always find your way to escape. If they hear that, they can go to jail for doing it because I'm not supposed to. But it's my job, so I'm doing my best for my country. And yeah, I conducted the whole investigation, and I discovered material published on Arabic channels that led me to understand that there was a Palestinian sniper right there at the exact distance, which allowed him to kill the journalist. And then my investigation led me to understand that the Palestinian Authority was very against Al Jazeera because Al Jazeera was a mouthpiece of Hamas because it's a Muslim Brotherhood, and Hamas is against Mahmoud Abbas and against the Palestinian Authority. So already they had closed the office of Al Jazeera in Ramallah, and the Palestinian Authority wanted to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So we had this propagandist from Al Jazeera killed during an exchange of fire in Jenin, and the Israeli army, obviously, within minutes, without any investigation, right after that, the entire planet said Israeli army killed the journalist. And guess what? The Israeli army said, yeah, we did. And I can prove it even today. I will send you the link also. You will see it's so obvious it was impossible for the IDF to have killed this journalist. But what happened at the political level is this. You remember that for some time, Netanyahu was not a prime minister. Bennett was, and then Lapid. Lapid is a very left-wing kind of guy. No, I mean, he would be like the Joe Biden of Israel. Not so much of the Obama of Israel, because Obama is a monster. We are not even going to go there. I'm talking about almost human being, Joe Biden, okay? For me, Obama is nothing but a monster. And this talking about Joe Biden, this very month, 2 months after the death of the journalist of Shirin Abu Akleh, Joe Biden was visiting Israel and the Palestinian territories. And Joe Biden, after Trump had such a strong agenda against Palestinian terrorism, he wanted to make good with Mahmoud Abbas. So the whole idea was, how can we make Mahmoud Abbas happy? And he made a deal with Lapid. And the deal was simple. We killed the journalist, but we didn't do that on purpose. Everybody's happy. Mahmoud Abbas is happy. Israel didn't do that on purpose, so it's not so bad. And here it is, and another story. We're not going to go over it. The reality is that, no, Israel didn't kill the journalist. It's as simple as that. But for political reason, Israel took responsibility. And this happens very often.
I wanted to jump in real quick and talk about a couple of things we've covered here in the last few minutes. Recently, Washington Post, one of our premier newspapers here in the United States, published a story, and they cited, after all this time, they're still citing the Palestinian Health Authority. And it's like, those guys have been wrong over and over and over. This is a premier paper citing a known propaganda source. They've had to backtrack before. And then what happens the very next day? They're like, you know what? Blew that one. I mean, this is an obvious error, right? And so it can't be incompetence, right? It's on purpose. There's no way, right? Go ahead.
No, all this. I mean, first of all, Washington Post belongs to Jeff Bezos, as you know, and you know Jeff Bezos' political point of view. Like many of those super billionaires who think that redemption goes through communism or some BS. And what they do is simple. They know they're lying, but they put their lies on the front page. And a week later, they say, "Oh, we are sorry. It was a mistake on the page 20, very small." So legally, they are good. They apologize. Yeah, well, we're doing real journalism, but people will just remember the front page because people in general don't have time for politics, don't have time for the news. They are just reading the great titles and they don't go deeper into that. And people know that now because you can get information from anywhere in the world, from the social networks, from the radio, from television, for you name it. So people don't have time anymore. So the headline is what is important. The big headline: Israel did it. And 2 weeks later, sorry, Israel didn't do it. Nobody's going to read the second part of it. And they know that, and it's vicious, and it's malicious, and they know exactly what they are doing, and it's all with one simple purpose: take the side of the Palestinians, because it's a good story where Palestinians are the good people, and the Jews, not the Israelis, the Jews are the bad people. The Jews have always been the bad people. You know that.
Yes,
of course. People.
The damn Jews.
Yeah, kill the Jews.
Yeah, and everybody's racing to anti-Semitism, which okay, that's kind of an unusual position to be. Oh no, we're just anti-Zionist. Okay, so still anti-Semitic. Okay, wait. So there's an expert in modern warfare called John Spencer. He gets to travel to combat zones.
Mine.
Yeah, and you know, right? Like, this is for everybody else listening. One of the things John said on my show the other day was there is no genocide. Right now, he's talking about the legal definition of genocide, but this is how we decide these things. He's also said that no modern military has done more in the history of combat to prevent civilian harm, right? To the point where, like, they put their own people in jeopardy and they self-report. They don't. If they were being that nefarious, why would they self-report, hey, we got this one wrong? And by the way, that happens in combat. When the enemy builds their machine in and around its own people, puts the hospital where the barracks are and all these kind of things, because the design of look, everybody knows the Hamas cannot win a toe-to-toe fight with Israel. They know that. So Israel has to fight in another way. They have to fight way outside of the box. So that's how they've done this. They've taken money and not given it to the Palestinians. They've given it to their friends. They've dug holes. They've woven their entire military infrastructure in within the population, knowing that this is going to cause pain. At any point in time, Hamas could have said, we surrender unconditionally, and all the violence would stop. This is not about the Israeli army trying to massacre people. This is about Hamas and their goal of creating this info war, right? Which baffles me when, I don't care what political bent you are, I can't ever read the Washington Post again because they've completely, on purpose, compromised their integrity. And we can't lose sight of that. Just report the damn facts. That's it. Just tell me what happened. And I'll say one more thing, and then I'm going to shut up. We just saw America and Israel combine and attack nuclear assets in Iran, right? We still don't really know all the things that happened, but you're going to sort out 2,000 people in a live combat zone in an hour? No, that's impossible. I mean, to move 1,000 bodies, to tag them, to process them, and that takes a long time to get right. And so when this information comes screaming out and we're desperate for it, that's just not reality, everybody. That's just not reality. Where are you going to put these bodies that you're processing? Yeah, sure, some are in the rubble. Well, that means it's hard to count them. Once they come out, they have to go somewhere. And there's in the military world, there's a whole morgue structure where you have bunk beds, for lack of a better term, and you just start putting bodies on there. All of those physical acts take time. And you have to log things. You have to ID people. And it doesn't get easier the more dead they get. You have to do this stuff in a very specific way. So when you see these kind of things, listen to John Spencer, and also realize that for the most part, you're getting played. When you watch the news and they say all this stuff, you're probably getting played because it just doesn't match the reality on the ground. All right, now I'm going to shut up and get out of your guys' way.
It took, I think, 10 years to Americans to find out the real number of how many people died in the World Trade Center on October 7. It took months to Israel to know how many people died. And even today, we're not sure 100% of the right number. Is it 1,200, 1,201? We don't know precisely. Maybe somebody's missing, maybe somebody wasn't. We don't know, okay?
Right.
But Hamas is capable within minutes to know exactly how many people were killed in the rubbles. In the rubbles, a building where maybe 2 people died or maybe 200 died. We don't know. We cannot go inside to count them. No, we know exactly 147, and among them was little Mohammed, little Aisha, little Laila, little this. And he's 11 years old and 3 years old, and his grandfather is my God, they are so sophisticated. They are living in the 22nd century. We are just camel drivers compared to them, right? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. We still don't know how many Japanese died on Iwo Jima almost 100 years ago. We still don't, and we're never going to know, right?
The only people on earth who are capable of knowing precisely how many people died because of the Israeli army are Palestinians. We are the best. They are amazing. Yeah.
And you know what? The thing about this is that there's a whole structure that prevents you from rationally questioning, and not to just jump in with a rant here, but in American media, it would be considered very racist to say, well, the government of Gaza is run by a bunch of half-assed terrorists that are probably not capable of doing this in the first place in terms of unpacking rubble and counting the bodies and so on. So we instead take their estimates as seriously as anybody else's, and so you get the IDF estimates of 5 deaths, and Hamas estimates 137. And Hamas, there's obviously you guys know what a linear model is. There's a study of the reporting of death in Gaza that finds what I think, Pierre, you mentioned this earlier, that every day it increases the side of a bell curve. It's a perfectly strategic, predictable trend that's almost impossible. And I think there's really not much point beyond that. Just we know to some extent this probably isn't real, but it would be considered incredibly crude to question this. And so we just sort of go with it. I guess, actually, while I have the floor, I'll flip to a somewhat different question that ties into this. But how did Palestine, you've been reporting on this for decades now. You've gone to the area, talked about it. How did Palestine become sort of the cause celeb for the Western, especially feminist left? The Chinese Uyghur genocides going on in Sudan, the Arabs and the Black Dinka, both legendary warriors, are massacring each other. There's Armenia, Azerbaijan, Russia, Ukraine. Why did Hamas become the symbol of resistance in the West? Is that just the picturesque cafes and the fact they're fighting Jews? What brought it about?
No, it's there is a serial of historical events. First of all, the first Palestinian nationalist leader, Haj Amin al-Husseini, the great Mufti of Jerusalem, in the 20s of last century, he was a leader. He was their leader of the Arabs of Palestine, because in those days you would not call those people Palestinians. A Palestinian was a Jew, was a Zionist. Palestine was a region, and only the Jews were calling themselves Palestinians. Later on, when Israel came to life, the Palestinians became Israelis. So the title was available. So the Arabs took it. Anyhow, so the first nationalist Palestinian nationalist was a friend of Adolf Hitler. His intention, among other things, beside having created a propaganda machine for all the Arab countries, financed by Hitler, on the top of that, he wanted to build a giant concentration camp, death camp, just beside Haifa for all the Jews of the Middle East. That was his dream. He was responsible for the riots in the 20s, especially the riot of 1929, when 100 more Jews were slaughtered the same way, with the same means that happened on October 7 lately. But it was in 1929 in Hebron, which became a Palestinian city. But it been historically, it has always been connected to Jewish history. But then come World War II. World War II, the result of World War II is that most of the Arab countries wanted to get rid of British and French colonialism, so they took the side of the Germans. And at the end of the World War II, a lot of Germans, of Nazis, just fled to Syria, to Egypt, and they started training what later on became the Palestinian terrorists. That was stage one. Now, we jump to the 50s and 60s. What happened there is that Soviet Union had also an interest in getting, because of the oil, because of how big the region is, they wanted to get all the Arabs on their side. So the easiest way was to create a problem for Israel. So in 1964 and 1967, Yasser Arafat, Shukeri, Nasser, and the KGB, they invented the Palestinian people that didn't exist before. The reason why is because to promote the communist agenda, which was failing, because, around the planet, workers supposedly represented by the communists, by communist ideas, they were getting okay, they were getting vacation and buying cars. It was not the workers of the 19th century anymore. So you could not represent those people with a communist agenda because they will not jump into it. They will not fall for it, whether in Europe or in America. And the goal of the Soviet Union was obviously to defeat America and to defeat Western ideas and to defeat capitalism. So as far as the Middle East was concerned, they built this gigantic propaganda machine against Israel to diminish all the good things about Israel, obviously, and they created this Palestinian people. So the victims of the Holocaust, the people who built Israel out of nothing, would become the new colonialists, having colonized the Palestinians, the Arabs who became the Palestinians. So much money was put into the system. It affected every university, every college, every school, every journalist, every media around the planet in the Western world. Through money, through ideology, through brainwashing, you name it. It's subversion at the highest level. And some guys, some former Soviet Union KGB members or intelligence of the intelligence community who defected as soon as the Soviet Empire collapsed, you had a few of them, they started writing about it. They explained how Yasser Arafat was never born in Palestine. He was born in Cairo. He's never been a Palestinian. He was just a nephew of Hajjamin al-Hussein. He was a Nazi, etc., etc., etc. But the system was so huge, so much money was poured into it, and there was still so much anti-Semitism flying around the planet. This time you couldn't say, I hate the Jews anymore because of the Holocaust. So he came up with this great idea.
I hate the Zionists.
Yeah, the Jews don't have anything against the Jews. Everything against Israelis. Oh, guess what? 50% of the Jews around the planet live in Israel. And among the other ones, among the other half, maybe 70% of them support Israel and are Zionists. So if you want to kill all the Zionists, you're going to kill basically 80% of the Jewish population. Hitler almost reached that point. Now they would do it through other means. And it would be politically correct to do it. And you might end up with a terrorist mayor in New York in November if you don't pay attention.
Yeah. Well, one thing about Mamdani that I will say is that I think the third world aspect of what he presents is a total facade. Like if you've seen him try to eat rice with his hands and so on, it's not very well done. So, I mean, I think he's more a product of Bowdoin's women's studies department than of, the streets of Cairo or something. Zohran Mamdani, if I'm getting his name correct, is formerly the rapper Lil Cardamom. So, I mean, there's a whole sort of secondary thing there where the facade is being put on as what he's expected to be as someone of South Asian heritage. He's just a dipshit rich kid to some extent. His mother directed Mississippi Masala. So the more interesting thing to me,
you know what she did also during the Hollywood Awards this year. She wanted Gal Gadot to be not to be able to attend because she's an Israeli and she was in the Israeli army. Of course, it didn't work because compared with this woman compared to Gal Gadot, who became an international star, she had no leverage. But she tried. She tried, and that's Zoran's mother. Imagine the kid.
And there's an interesting 360 degrees there, right? Because you're talking about, this is something that's interesting. I frankly had not known this about Palestine or the Arab cause. But you see this a lot in the USA, that a lot of things came out of the Cold War. This is true, I'm sure, in France as well, another one of the great Western powers. But the Russians and the Westerners fought for decades, and money was pumped into the other society by the rival to support anything that would weaken it. We did this as well, of course. But when you look at any major American leftist movement, like the eco-freako, no oil, no nuclear stuff is the ultimate example of this to me. But you generally, if you dig down an inch, you find the Russians. It's like, oh, Vladimir Lebrakov from whatever, Vladivostok was the first person to incorporate this group, that kind of thing, literally that kind of thing. So it's interesting to see that that happened with the pro-Palestinian movement, but it worked. So that people who were perhaps half Arab or Indian or just white college students like Mamdani's friends and family bought this and became part of it. And now they're presenting as representatives of the authentic third world and so on. I think Mamdani's from Queens. He lived briefly in Uganda. He's from New York. He's from a condo brownstone there. But he's totally put on this personality of the third world fakir, and this is deeper than you might think. I mean, Gandhi was a lawyer. Him walking around in dhotis and so on was entirely fake. But it's a fakeness that's been substituted.
Don't forget the Hollywood smile.
How do I smile?
No, Hollywood smile.
Do not forget his Hollywood smile. Each one of his pictures has this big smile.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but that's just really interesting. I appreciate the point on the background there, but I do think we've now seen that come full circle. So Mamdani is actually an upper middle class American. I would bet money that every one of his partners in college was Caucasian, but he is now, walking around representing for the oppressed masses of the, we need to cut this stuff out of Western societies. Like, I'm of Black and Native descent myself, but I don't have a headdress on or whatever, because that has never become trendy in that community. But we'll see if it will. What do you think, Pete?
Yeah, well, first off, I haven't really paid much attention at all to the mayoral race in New York City because it frankly has very little to do with my world, right? But I saw about half a second of the clip of him eating rice with his hand, and I said, that guy's never been to the Arab world. He's never eaten rice with his hands. And more importantly, and Pierre, I know you know this, when you eat like that, when you sit on the floor and everybody gets around to basically what is a tablecloth on the ground, when your host takes the head of the lamb and places it in front of your plate, and they, as they're talking and smoking and all the time, and they take their dirty hand and they throw food on your plate because they respect you, you have to withstand all of that. And it's all gross from the civilization that people who eat with forks. I mean, this is my world, right? Like, I've got to go and sit in front of a sheikh and accept all this because I know that's from them expression of honor and love. And I didn't see the guy eating rice how they eat rice because it's put on. Look, it's great. Go to all the ethnic places you want and go practice that, but don't put it on TV like you're some kind of sit on the floor, eat rice with your hand, and have lamb and smoke all day kind of Arab type guy. Sorry, I had to say that.
At least I saw the clip. He was eating with his right hand.
Yeah,
because
in
Islam, you have two hands. The right hand you eat with and the left hand you use it to clean your ass after taking a shit. Okay, you don't clean it. In Algeria, where I was born, in public toilets, you would have these little signs on the walls, brown and disgusting. The Arabs would go to the same toilets, do what they do, and then wipe it with their fingers, and then clean their fingers in the walls. Okay, yes. So when you've been living in those countries and you know how they behave, not the high class level, not the high class people, okay, because there's also a society very elegant and very educated within the Muslim world. But I'm talking about people in the street with no education, and it's really beyond disgusting. I mean, their culture is beyond disgusting at this level, at least. And it's really not acceptable for us. My wife, my second wife is from India. She's in India. She's an Indian Jew, believe it or not. There were about 6,000-7,000 Jews in India, and most of them moved to Israel. So with her family, she moved to Israel when she was a kid. So once in a while, she's happy to do as they used to do when they are living in India, and she cooks something with rice, and she eats it with her hand. But the way she does it it's kind of, there's some elegancy in the gesture. I don't know how to explain it because it's maybe because it's my wife, but I didn't see. I was invited many times, as you were, by Muslims in their own countries, whether in Morocco or in Iraq, places, and they obviously, yeah, they took the piece of lamb, they put it in your plate. There is some, not aggression, but the gesture is not the same. There is no elegancy in it.
Right.
It's like, let's eat, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing I would say to all that stuff, if you're going to put on these kind of airs, like you're a man of the person, or you sit on the ground and eat rice with guests and everything, again, that's all fine, but don't expect people to believe it. I get that nobody else really knows or cares about that, but I saw, like I said, 10 seconds of that clip, and I'm like, oh, come on, And look, we do this a lot. We saw we see political figures in America here, they'll get that great photo of them wearing a denim shirt, looking down a desert road, and all that kind of stuff. Look, all that's fine. That's just standard marketing of somebody. But when you're talking about lives and you're pointing anger, violent anger, murderous anger towards a group of people, well, then I have a problem with that. And when we lie openly about the history of Israel, and look, I'm not saying Israel's innocent. I'm not saying that at all.
No, no country is.
No country is, right. And they've certainly made mistakes, and they haven't owned up to all of them. And the next time Mossad kills the wrong person and goes, so what? That won't be the first time, and it probably won't be the last. So the whole thing, just why do we continue? Like, why? What is it about us humans or us Americans or whatever that allows us? Look, you make films. I'm trying to be a filmmaker. I want to be able to find that hook. I just want to do it honorably. I don't I don't want to lie to people. Why are we desperate to believe that there are punji stick pits right in front of the aid, and that the Israelis are going to shove? I mean, why are we desperate to believe things that are absolutely lies? Why?
I know. I mean, I don't have a straight answer to that. It's something I'm also wondering myself. I think the lack of education, the need to believe in easy stuff. The story is easy, black and white. And if the story has been built around poor, good Palestinians versus tough, bad Israelis, that's a story that they serve. 20 years ago, I was sitting in Jerusalem with a journalist from the New York Times. I don't remember his name today. But he told me, listen, you don't understand. We have 2 minutes during dinner time to tell the story. And this time the story has been written by the Palestinians. You are not in charge of writing the scenario. They did. It's already done. That's it. End of the story. In 2 minutes, we have to tell them story. No matter you will do, what you will say and do, they have written the scenario. And in marketing, they are perfect. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. You cannot beat that with, but 3,500 years ago, Moses was wandering in the desert, and later on, and Abraham, and Jerusalem, and we have the right and the Holocaust. Palestinian will be free, my friend. It's marketing. It's done. You're dead. You're gone. You don't have the marketing. We are trying to explain, to justify. I don't explain. I don't justify anymore. I just go straight to the point, and I just prove the lies, and I prove the lies through numbers and through fact, and that's it. And I do that because I'm too old to fight. If not, I would be in the army. And I'm a pilot. I would be happy to be flying an F-15 above Gaza and bomb the shit out of them. Believe it or not. Okay? Because I know what I am dealing with. I know who I am dealing with.
In society that has a war and won't allow reporters to come in because of your passport or the color of your skin or whatever it is, right? They've already got a problem, and it's hard to believe them. And I know this is going to take the conversation probably in a different direction, but I'm desperate to know, are you a fan of Isaac Hadjar, the Formula One driver, at all? Do you follow Formula One? He's Algerian French. No? Oh, okay. I thought for sure like you'd have like the full thing. You'd be all kitted up.
I don't follow any sport, anything on television. For me, I'm a guy who's been always in love with cinema, with movies. I'm passionate about movies. I was a film critic when I was a young kid. I was lucky enough when I was young to meet with amazing people. I became friends with Sergio Leone. I met Robert Aldrich. I met, believe it or not, just 2 months before he died, I met with Charlie Chaplin. I met with Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, this was really my life, you know. Hollywood, the movie industry, this is what I was doing. And for me, sitting in front of a screen is always to go away from reality and to enjoy some fiction or sometimes some documentaries. Okay, but I don't go for sports or or news.
Does it at all excite you that a French Algerian guy is racing in Formula One? Can you get down with that at all, or does that you not care in the least? Don't care.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's
I don't
okay.
even know about him. I don't
Will,
even
get
know
us
about him.
back to reality. What do we need to do here before we wrap this thing up?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you asked me many questions, and I was happy to answer to each one of them. I hope you understood, because sometimes my accent goes a little bit too Frenchy when I try to speak too fast. Even though I've been living in America for many years, I was living in New York for almost 4 years and in Los Angeles for 3 years. So I spent 7 years of my life in America. And yet I still have a stupid French accent that I hate when I speak American, when I speak in English American. So anyhow, so yeah.
But you want to hear my French accent. It is le pire. It's terrible.
Look, I mean, a French or English accent, in all honesty, makes Americans think you're smarter. I mean, we make fun of it, but it's the assumption is this guy's a foreign genius, as opposed to like a cowboy drawl or something. So you should keep it. You should exacerbate it a little bit.
Yeah, and for me, it's the other way around. When I see an American cowboy, I'm in love. When I hear a French bullshitter, I don't go for it. You know.
Yeah. I'm going to let Will go because he's got to pop off and go do some radio. Thanks, Will, as always. Let me know if there's anything else you need from me. And then, Pierre, if you got another minute or two, I'd like to ask you another couple of questions if you have time.
Sure. I have another. I must take care of my daughter, but I have another 5 minutes.
We'll be 5 minutes then. Okay. So when you look at these projects that you try to do, you get incredible access and you make these documentaries. And here's pogroms.info for Pierre's latest project. There's a lot of them. You can look on YouTube. There's stuff there. You guys know how to look stuff up. Pierre Rahov, you can find it. Okay. Tell us about this latest project.
About this?
Pogroms, the pogroms, yeah.
Okay, Pogroms is the film that I wanted to make as an answer to Antonio Guterres, the Secretary-General of the United Nations, who after a few weeks finally accepted to condemn October 7, but he could not do it in a straight way. He couldn't say it was horrible, it was a genocide, it was a massacre, it was a pogrom. No, he had to say what happened on October 7 was terrible, but it didn't happen in a vacuum. It's a result of decades of oppression of the Palestinian people. What? So I wanted to answer to this bullshit by reminding him, among other things, first of all, I had to survey what happened on October 7. And in order to do that, I didn't want to talk to the victims out of respect for them. I didn't want to go to a guy who lost his wife and go like CNN, so your wife died? Can you tell us how you feel about it? You know? No, I didn't want to do that at all. Too much respect for those people. So only people who are in my film are the first responders, the ones who discovered what happened, who discovered the dead bodies and the raped women and the babies burned alive and all that. They discovered it, they filmed, they had that on their cell phones. And I trusted them to tell me the entire story. So they told me the entire story of October 7, and I could put that in a film with some images. I didn't use all the graphic images I had because I had access to a lot. And believe me, I couldn't put in the film a pregnant woman whose belly has been opened by a Palestinian terrorist and the fetus taken out of the belly and stabbed in front of her before she was shot in the head, okay? I couldn't put that. I couldn't put the result of that in the film, but I saw the image. And when people deny it, I want to simply kill them because denying is even worse than doing it. You know, already you've been slaughtering us and now you pretend it didn't happen. That's double. I mean, it's terrible. I cannot even say how I feel about it. So this is the first part of the film. Then I wanted to go in history to answer to Mr. Guterres and to tell him, well, if I remember, in 1929 in Hebron, there was a massacre, the same as in on October 7th. And also in 1941 in Baghdad, there was a Fahud, which was also a giant pogrom, and the Jews were slaughtered the same way. And by the way, in 1907 in Morocco, in Oujda, there was also a pogrom like this, where Jews were slaughtered. And guess what? In the 19th century, you know how many pogroms there were in the Palestine region? There has been 87 pogroms in the 19th century under the Ottoman Empire. And you know what? It's not only the Jews. In Damour, in Lebanon, in 19, I don't want to say something, I think in 1987, if I don't mistake, maybe I'm wrong with the date, the exact date. But what I'm not wrong with is that this Christian village in Damour was assaulted by the men of Yasser Arafat, the Fatah, and they slaughtered 547 Christians. They raped the women, they tortured the kids, they beheaded the men, they did every horrible things that they did on October 7 in the kibbutz and at the Nova Festival. But they didn't do that against Jews, it was against Christians, and it was not the Hamas, it was Yasser Arafat's people. So I wanted to answer that to Antonio Guterres by showing him with proofs and numbers and images from the past what actually Islam is all about. What actually, this is just Islam. Daesh, it's Islam. ISIS, it's Islam. Al-Qaeda, it's Islam. Boko Haram is Islam. Hamas, it's Islam. So stop with your bullshit. We know that you're paid by the Arab League that is dominating the United Nations. We know that the United Nations is no longer an organization for the profit of humanity, but only for the profit of dictatorships. Right. When you see that Iran at a certain time is managing the human rights, the human rights organization for women, Iran and Saudi Arabia, and I mean, this is beyond ridiculous. And yet it works and it's okay. And nobody says anything about it. But when Israel touches one hair of a Palestinian, the entire United Nations are jumping. And so it's exhausting. So this is the second part of my film. And the third part of my film was a little bit more political. I wanted to explore what happened in American universities and why on October 8th, when there was a massacre the day before, they didn't parade to help Israel and to say, I'm a Jew, I'm Israel, it's terrible, stop the massacre. No, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free in the streets of Manhattan and the street of Paris and London. What?
Yeah.
Late to that. And then I discovered Qatari money, I interviewed people who knew about it, and this is part of subversion. All the subversion started with the Soviet Union, and when the Soviet Union slowly disappeared, all the tools were still there for the Arabs to take over.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you. Everybody should watch that. The movie. You can hold on. You can see the link down there. Just go to pogroms.info. Look in general. You guys know how to find Pierre's work. It's not that hard to do.
We can go on Apple TV. It's available on Apple TV, or we can, if you want to watch it for free, we can just go to Tubi TV because it's a huge, 500,000 people watch it already on Tubi TV.
Yeah, yeah, and look, you guys are welcome to disagree with Pierre. It's fine, but go watch and see what you come back with. And if it's like that's all bullshit, okay, great. But find someone else doing the same kind of work on the other side, and I think you're going to find that side wanting because it's just not out there. The truth is hard. And by the way, the truth is complicated. There's a lot of things that are going on. The last thing I wanted to just bring up, because I got like maybe another minute here. Working spy style stuff, I'm amazed at how deeply inserted Mossad has been in Hezbollah, in Iran. And we know already, by the way, this is how this works, everybody. Iran has massacred a lot of its own people now because of this. Because why? There's a spy around every corner. They don't know who is and who isn't a spy, right? And that's one of the knock-on effects. That's one of the second and third order effects that happen when you do these things. Mossad reveals you're completely compromised. And so what does Iran do? It turns on its own people. And there's no trials. There's no judges. It's just massacre, right? And that's the people that we're talking about. So I just wanted to get any thoughts if you have them. I'm on Mossad and their incredible year or so of intel operations.
You know why Israel is so successful in the Muslim world? I'm gonna tell you why. Because 1 million Jews were expelled, like my own family, from Muslim countries between 1948 and 1974. At least, I mean, out of this million Jews expelled, there was no any United Nations organization to take care of their plight. Nobody really complained about it. Nobody said they were refugees. Why? Because they were not kept in camps. We went to France, we went to America, we went to Israel. Out of 1 million Jews, 600,000 went to Israel. But those Jews went to Israel. Most of them were speaking Farsi or Arabic. So in Israel, you had a huge population knowing the language of the enemy, and they're having still connection there. Some of the Iranians who fled Iran after 1979 because it was not possible for those Jews to stay in Iran with this oppressive government, they kept friends over there. And among their friends, there are people who were against the regime. So it was becoming easy to have this connection between Iran and Israel, thanks to all those people who lost everything. Everything was stolen from them, from the Arabs and from the Muslims in general. That's karma. That's Revenge Day.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you said that. There's so much more to talk about. And, you know, when you think about the insertion, what year was it when Ahmadinejad was sitting next to the Israeli prime minister, and they're from the same village in Iran? I think was it Bennett? I don't know. Anyhow, you know, there used to be a lot of Jews in Iran, and you know, they get kicked out, they get killed, they have to go to America, whatever it is. So that's how these things are born, everybody. But when you understand, and you can kind of see behind the curtain, you all of a sudden you get like what all of the fuckery that happens in this world. I'll shut up and let you finish. Anything else at all you want to say, Pierre? Otherwise, thank you very much from my heart. I appreciate you.
My pleasure to be with you today.
Okay, I'm going to say, I'll be right back to you. I'll say goodbye.